But when I rolled over into a new year, which was 1999, the end of February, I had already had in my checking account more money than I made at the entire year at my job. So 2 months, 2 months, I'd covered my whole year. And then I thought, okay, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I can make this happen. I was making 40 a year, and within 3 or 4 months, I was making 40 a month.
Welcome to the Not a Financial Advisor podcast, where we talk money, mindset, and mistakes without pretending to have it all figured out. I'm Chase, and my mission is simple: to help you maximize your potential and think differently about freedom, business, and wealth. You'll hear from people who are actually doing it, building businesses, growing wealth, and living life on their terms. I'm glad you're here. Enjoy the episode. All right, I'm excited to be here with my guest and great friend, business partner, and mentor, Mr. Mike Smith. He's a local entrepreneur here in the Boise, Idaho area, and a businessman with very humble beginnings. In fact, he started his business on credit cards. So we're going to find out a little bit more about that here in a minute. How you doing there, Mr. Smith? How you doing, Mike?
Doing great. Beautiful, beautiful day.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you've got a little bit more time these days, and now that you've sold some of your businesses, which we'll get to in a second. But tell us about starting your business on credit cards. What does that mean?
You know how a person kind of gets complacent at their job. You have insurance, you have a 401k, maybe a pension, pretty decent job, but you have that security and you're a little bit afraid to maybe move to the next level. Also, most of your money's going to sustain your family and buying a home and keeping food on the table and all those things. And a lot of times your significant other is like, hey, let's not rock the boat. We're doing good here.
Yeah. It's good. It's good. So maybe don't push things.
Yeah. And I saw something one day that I'll kind of just segue right into why I wanted to start my own company. And the timing was that I used to work for a dairy company, and I was the transportation and the warehouse manager. Great job, great company. But I used to sit in my office, and I would always notice that the trucks that come to pick up the products were not the same people that I hired on the phone. And I dealt with that for a while. And then one day I just got up out of my chair and walked out and asked a truck driver, hey, what are you doing here? I hired so-and-so to come and pick up this load, but here you are. And he says, well, that's a freight broker you hired. And I said, well, tell me what a freight broker is. I'd never heard of one before. And he said, well, a freight broker is someone that, first of all, no one has 25 trucks just to come pick up all your milk at one time. So a freight broker calls several trucking companies and spreads that out over them. He takes about 15% off the top of what you pay him, and he pays me the rest and hires me and all these other guys to come pick up your product. And from that point forward, I had just discovered a business that I had never heard about. And my mind just immediately went to my bill alone is $200,000 a month. This guy's got a gross profit off of me of like $30,000 a month if he averages 15%. And I have a cell phone before anybody knows what one is. I'm on call 24/7 and probably making 40 a year. And I thought to myself, this is really what I want to do when I grow up. Now, I'm already in my late 30s, and it's kind of like time to get something going. You really need to be doing what you're going to be doing by the time you're 40.
So, well, I have an advantage here of knowing you pretty well. You've been a mentor of mine for, probably almost 20 years now, which is crazy to believe. Before we dig into, if you're okay with it, because I was going to ask, like, oh, had you ever thought about doing business before? But I know you had a business before this.
I did,
and you lost a lot, and there was a funny story there, right?
Well, I don't know how funny it is, but I had a couple other businesses, and I guess the only funny part of it is how stupid you are when you come from zero. I mean, you've always had to have a siphoning hose to keep gas in your car. When you run into just a little bit of money, you think that you know some people call it farmer rich, stripper rich, whatever you want to call it. You run into a little bit of money and you think, man, I got it made. But I had a couple little businesses go on, a car lot or two, a car crusher, a little junkyard, and then they kind of fell off to the side because I got a bunch of government contracts cleaning the Corps of Engineers parks. Which paid a lot better, had good cash flow. Well, got a little sideways with the state, and of course, being young and it's like, hey, you're not the boss of me. I'll do what I want, and I found out that that wasn't true. So I soon got my dealer's license revoked, and then I really didn't understand the cut steel contracts and all that stuff, and kind of got, you know, hoodwinked there, lost a lot of money. But my park cleaning business was still doing great. Well, a guy come along and made my partner and I an offer on the park cleaning business, which I mean, Jesus, we're going to walk away with like 20 grand a piece. I mean, hey, I'm
What
probably not
what
going to
what
work
year
again.
is this?
This is like 1984, 5.
So I'm,
Our
I'm
best
guessing
business
20
loan.
grand back then is a little different than 20 grand today, right?
It is a little different, but not enough different to to, to think that we probably had it made for quite a while. And at that particular time, our best business loan was 18.5 from our good friends at the bank. Uh, it just was stupid young guys. We would have had that 20,000 a piece back long before the end of our contract, and the government was going to change how the contracts worked. This guy knew that, and we didn't. When our contracts expired, the only way to get back in is if you were a previously proven contractor. I mean, that's another whole long story. So we sold to this guy, and we bought a little piece of real estate that we flipped and doubled our money, and we turned that 20 into like 30,000 a piece. And with, to shorten up that version of my life, within 6 months, we were both wondering, you know, where our next meal's coming from. We blew through that money, and I mean, I did have a Trans Am and a Corvette, and all those essential young businessman things that a guy's got to have. But found out pretty quick that I probably needed to go get a job, so I did, which changed the whole scope of my life. I got a job as a milkman, which completely knocked the tip off of my shoulder, taught me how to go out there and visit with people. And our company had a rule that if a customer ever calls the company to complain about you, it's your fault. It doesn't matter if they sexually harassed you, if they cussed at you, if they called you. Well, it doesn't matter what they did. If they call and complain about you, it's your fault. It's your job to maintain a relationship with that customer so that they love you. So before the internet, the only way jokes and funny stories could get spread was from the milkman or the bread man or the pot man. We went from store to store to store to store, driving on our route.
You're like a
Just,
stand-up comedian then, huh?
yeah, you got to make those people love you and want to be waiting to see you. And it was a pretty good gig. We got 6%, 6 cents on the dollar for everything we sold. And we kept their shelves full and kind of figured out what would sell, and we stocked them. I mean, it's another thing of the past, but sometimes, back then a good job was $5 an hour. So if you're turning that into 10 or sometimes $15 an hour in commission based sales, that's top dog in a little town in South Dakota, which is where I come from.
All right, so you have a business, you got a business partner, you sell, you feel rich. We'll go with farmer rich instead of stripper rich.
Okay.
Either way, you felt rich.
Yeah.
And then the money's gone. But you said something that the guy who bought your business knew the contract was going to change. Can you just maybe give us a hint? We don't have to go super deep, but
Yeah,
like
he
what did he
he
do?
was he was an experienced government contractor in these Corps of Engineers contracts, and I think maybe had an inside man, kind of a brother-in-law deal that maybe told him, "Hey, when this series of contracts are done, outsiders are no longer going to be available or able to bid on these contracts. If you don't have a track record doing these cleaning contracts, you can't even bid." So
So
he
the
kind of
price
knew
is
that.
probably going up, is what you're saying.
Absolutely, the amount you're getting the contracts for is going to expand, because like rookies like my partner and I that had just gotten in, we we can't even bid anymore. And before you can bid the contract, you have to prove to the Corps of Engineers that you have all the equipment, uh, photographs, titles, however you want to do that. You have to prove that you have the mowing equipment and the power washers and the cleaning equipment. And you know, it was it really was a good gig back in the '80s. I think after we paid ourselves, it's only like a 4-month contract. The bulk of it's 3 months, but after expenses, we're putting away 10 grand a month, which we'd never dreamt. We'd never seen that kind of money before.
Yeah, yeah. So that's that. If $5 an hour was good, you guys were making probably more like $50 to
Yeah,
$100 an hour or something.
well, we both have $4 an hour jobs to be there. So I was making 160 a week. I got paid every 2 weeks. My gross was 320. After taxes, I took home 280 for 2 weeks.
If you guys are listening, do you notice that he knows every dollar that that he made back in the '80s? That's pretty impressive. That kind of stuff sticks with you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so so let me just to like, what do you think he started billing? You guys were billing X, but now he's the exclusive guy. So was he billing significantly more after he bought the business?
Well, he had to stick with our contract for 2 years because he bought us out. So he had to honor what we were doing it for. And then I just kind of lost touch with the guy. I don't know if I would say probably 30% more.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. Had you known that, would you have not sold it?
Ah, no, we probably would have sold it. Like I said, we
But that's
weren't the,
just lack of experience. You guys didn't.
yeah, we were like 24 and 25, and you wave a $10,000 bill in front of a 20-year-old. It's like, yeah, take it.
Bye.
Yeah. And this guy that bought it from us, he actually taught us some things, helping us. I mean, we're his competitor, and he showed us some tricks that saved us a stack of money.
Okay.
And some of those tricks are like, you've got 100 garbage cans to empty in a big major park on the river. He taught us how to put pebbles on top of them and check them with binoculars. And if the pebbles were still sitting on the garbage can lid, that meant it was empty, and there's no reason to go check it.
Holy
Just
smokes.
just whip through there and check the ones that the pebbles are gone, and then put the lid back on, put pebbles on that one, and go to the next one. So you might only had to check 4 out of 60, and you're out of that park in just minutes. And
Wow.
he taught us how, have a cleaning trailer, so one guy can be doing the garbage. Well, you can drop the trailer at the bathrooms. That guy can be cleaning with his supplies out of the trailer. The guy actually was the best competitor I've ever had. It was almost like he took ownership of us doing our job correctly. Even though it wasn't his job anymore, he put us on the right course, and we had.
Well, I would say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're living proof of this. But like, if you ask someone who has knowledge, if you ask them for help, they'll most of the time they'll give it to you.
Not only give it to you, most of the time they'll become your friend and they love it.
Yeah.
Some of the in the freight brokerage business and the freight business, some of the people that I learned the most were people that everybody else thought were just horrible, horrible, worst people in the business. And all you had to do is make those people feel like they're a little smarter than you, and they love to mentor you. They love to, spill out their secrets. I learned a lot that way.
Okay. So I interrupted your story earlier. You're a milkman. Is that how you got into the dairy, doing freight for the dairy company?
It is. I applied for jobs around the country, just I moved up as far as I could with the dairy I was. I was like the Western South Dakota sales manager, but was kind of looking for bigger and better. Uh, just had gotten married. My wife was looking for career opportunities, so we were looking for a little bit bigger metropolitan area. And I received a call from a place I'd applied to in Boise, Idaho. So it's kind of tough. We're about 87, 8, 9 by now. I'd been a milkman, with the dairy company there for 4 or 5 years, and I flew to Idaho and interviewed. Had a really, really lucky interview with the CEO of the Dairymen's Creamery Association out of Caldwell, Idaho. They're a dairy company that probably over a century ago formed here, and they had bought up all the other little dairies in the valley, and they were looking for a northern Idaho sales manager. So I had a common bond with the guy in the interview. So he never ever asked me any interview questions. We just talked about this common bond that we had. And I think I've told you this story before, but I'll throw it in here just because it kind of shows how the littlest things make the biggest connections. And when I applied for the jobs, I had no idea how to do a resume. I started I started in the sixth grade. I put down that I used to work in this little small town grocery store, and that my duties were stocking the shelves, cleaning, mopping, but candling eggs was one of my things that I did. A lot of people don't know what that is, but it's where you take a egg, hold it up to a little box with a light in it that makes the egg transparent. You can tell if it has a chicken or blood spot in it. Then you clean it, put it in a carton. That's how it was done. So this guy is reading my resume, and he stops and he looks over his resume, and he says, I don't think I ever met another guy that candled eggs before. And I kind of apologize for my resume starting in the sixth grade. But he kind of leans back and he starts telling me the story how when he's a kid, like 14, his dad dies and he got a job with the Super Value Corporation candling eggs. And he he had four sisters and a mother that he provided for by candling eggs at night after school. The people liked him. He goes through school, college, candling eggs for these people at night. And he said they arranged it around his football schedule, and he stayed there till he got drafted to World War II. And he got kind of teary eyed telling me that story. And then he went on about his career in the Navy and on and on and on. Never even asked me another interview question. And I thought that I'd bombed this thing. I go in the other room to wait for my ride back to the airport, basically. And the guy that's going to be my supervisor comes in and says, "Well, he doesn't want to talk to anybody else. When can you be in Boise, Idaho?" So I said, "Well, I guess I'll go home and get my stuff and give a little bit of notice and be here in a couple of weeks." And this guy, because of that connection, was almost embarrassing how good he treated me. It was like the son he never had. I moved through the ranks of the company at a speed that no one had ever seen. Within 6 months, I'm like third in command. I'm in charge of all warehousing and trucking and everything. So that was a real stroke of luck for me. And that's why I was hiring people to come and
Well,
pick up the mail.
Mike, you say luck, and while it is true that you guys both happen to candle eggs, one thing that wasn't lucky is you let this guy just talk.
Absolutely.
And you listened, and that's not that's not a lucky thing. There's plenty of people who would have been like, "Oh yeah, you candled eggs, oh cool. Let me tell you about me candling eggs." I think you probably knew your place to just let this guy go.
Well, we've both read How to Win Friends and Influence People, right?
Yeah, tell the story. There's one story that comes to my mind, but go ahead.
Well, the story is he goes to some people's home, very high up on the social scale, college professor kind of people, and sits with them over wine and cheese and whatever, and they're visiting, and he hardly says a word all night. And the next day, these people comment about Hey, you know, you young guy, Dale, that you brought over last night, one of the best conversationalists we've ever run into in our lives because he didn't say anything. He just
Yeah, I
listened.
the thing that I remember is they said he was so interesting,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I think that's in there too.
yeah, and the funny part is like they don't know anything about him. So what do people find interesting? They find themselves interesting. So
So, you know what I've read that book probably 5 times, and you know what I really loved about it was we always referred to it as the Bible. For the sales, you know, if you follow the principles set forth in that book, you cannot fail. There's just no way you can fail if you do what that book says. And it was written so many years ago, but why it was my favorite is his shoe sales route covered about half of my milk route. So he sold to a lot of the same exact stores way back when he got there by train and horse and buggy that I sold to in the 80s when I was delivering milk with a milk truck all across that same country.
that's wild.
Yeah, that is wild. That to me, when I read where his sales territory was, it's like I was the milkman at that store.
Well, okay. So fast forward. Now you're running the freight. We figured out how you got in there. You're running the freight. You look up one day, someone you didn't hire is there. You're trying to figure out what the heck's going on. He tells you about business brokers or truck brokers, and you decide, I'm going to get into business. And now you started off, Mike, saying like, when your spouse is like, I don't know, everything's good, let's not rock the boat. Is this the time you decided to rock the boat?
Well, no, I still kept buying into that for another year, probably a year and a half. I just could not get that out of my head, but stayed there at my nice, secure uh, position. And one thing I had kind of decided that, hey, I'm going to do this. If I have to run the business on credit cards, I've got a stack of them. I can, you know, what's the worst that can happen, you know? So I was kind of making a plan to go forward doing that. And then the company I work for also decided they were going to stop doing a pension plan and they bought out our pension. So, you know, I was going to get a check from them, which could subsidize my lack of income. Plus, I had credit cards. So I decided that I'm moving on. And I went to work for the broker that I'd been using under the understanding that I'm going to learn how to do this and then I'm going to do my own thing.
Bless him.
So I move forward with the plan and I go to work for this broker that I'd been using and learned the ins and the outs. Stayed there maybe like a year and a half. And then one of the customers I'd been using, I explained to him, he was like one of my biggest customers. I tell him, hey, I won't be here just another couple of weeks. I'm going to start my own brokerage agency kind of a thing. Well, he said, if you're going to do that, he said, that's what we do. Well, I'm thinking this guy's a big shipper, but he's actually just another broker. So he tells me about their program. We do a couple of phone interviews, and I start my agency with them. I start, with SPI, the company that I ran here forever. I sign an agency agreement with them. I go to CUNA. I rent an office for nothing. I go, I go to U.S. Bank and CUNA, try to get a line of credit to run my business. And the lady at the bank, the manager who was there forever, a lady named Sue, says to me, well, if you're looking for an office in CUNA, there's nothing in our basement. So I looked at it. I said, this would be perfect. No interruptions, no windows, nothing but, nothing but work. They wanted $300 for the whole basement, all utilities, and a cleaning service. How could you turn that down?
How long
I
was your rent?
immediately,
$300. I've been in that office a long time ago. How
yeah,
long was your rent? $300.
oh, forever. It was only like 600 when I left.
And this is a big basement. I mean, this is like
It's
what,
huge. Yeah,
3, 4, 5,000 square feet, something like
it's
that.
huge. Yeah, it's huge, but no one ever wanted it. But it was great.
That's funny. So now there's a story in there that I actually just think it's hilarious. So we have to tell it, I think. But at the broker you were at, wasn't the manager a pretty interesting character?
Oh God, interesting isn't even the word for it. Yeah,
Can you
yeah.
tell
Most
us the
most of the
story?
language that was used and the way that you probably wouldn't want to show on your podcast. You'd have to have a it wouldn't meet the G rating of your podcast. It
Well,
was
well, maybe you can give us a little bit. There was a manager there, and there's a story about you going and picking breakfast up.
you
That I just
you,
can't.
you
We
really
have to
want me
tell
to
it.
you really want me to tell that story?
I'd like you to tell it. Yeah.
Should I leave the profanity out of it?
Yeah, I mean, you can do short form where people can fill in the blanks if you want. And if something slips, it's not the end of the world.
Okay, so well, one day I'm going to work and I decide that I'm going to be nice and I'm going to buy breakfast for the whole office. So I go to McDonald's, and other people have done this in the past and got a pat on the back. So I just did it. Went to McDonald's, picked it up, come to the office, pass it out. I know what everybody likes. And I'm sitting there about to get to work, and all of a sudden, this bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit just explodes off my desk. And what happened was the manager had opened it up and it had cheese on it. And she hated cheese. Oh my God, and she tries to hit the garbage can, I think, but it hits the corner of my desk and it's just an explosion. And I'm like, whoa. And she looks at me, she'd always do this, with her finger. You stupid, blah, blah, blah. You know that I hate cheese on my biscuit. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I know that, and I specifically told them when I ordered that the bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit, absolutely no cheese. So she stomps off and picks up she goes, "What McDonald's did you go to?" And I told her, and I hear this lady call this McDonald's manager. She calls, asks for the manager. I hear her call her every name you could possibly call another human being, and just rip her a new one. And she slams the phone down and comes to me and she says, "Now you go back over there. They're going to give you a new one." So, okay, I get in my car. I drive back over to McDonald's. I walk in, and there's this lady standing there with the bag. She says,
This
"Oh, are you
poor
Mike?"
lady. This
Yeah.
poor
I
lady.
said, "I'm Mike." And I said, "Hey, I heard the phone conversation and I want to apologize. I mean, I would never talk to you that way, on and on." And she goes, "Oh, that's okay. That's just my mother. That's just how she is." I, I didn't even have, I couldn't even say anything. I mean, it was her own daughter that she was talking to that way. Oh,
Oh my God. And this is the office manager of your competition that you're going to go start a brokerage.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So interesting.
We that place was incredible. A spoiled, real rich guy that started it and owned it, and it was a pretty good business. Yeah, every time you'd make commission, they'd come and change the rules. If you're good at it and they'd owe you a big commission check, he'd come in and, well, we're not going to be able to do that. They were just kind of crooked that way.
Wow.
But it had also gotten back to him one time that I said he wouldn't be that successful if his dad wasn't a zillionaire, had all kinds of money on and on. And he come and had a sit down with me about that. He said, he didn't appreciate, I'm the one that built this here business, on and on and on. And I said, yeah. And I said, I'm not taking anything away from you. You did build this business. I just said it's a lot easier when you have a family member with a safety net of stacks and stacks and stacks of money. It's a lot easier than somebody trying to start a business on their own with no safety net. It's a whole different thing. And I never could get him to understand that. He hated me, but understood that I put a lot of I was pretty good at what I was doing and learning from the old acts that run the place. Liked me because they could shuffle the freight to me and I would get it done. And so many people would quit. There's people that would come in there and she would grind them up in a matter of days. The office was full of cigarette smokers. I was a smoker myself, and I would go home and put my my clothes in. It's probably what helped me quit. To be honest with you, it was just a haze in there. But I'd leave my clothes in the garage and just put on the same ones the next day because they stunk so bad.
I'm just imagining like the boiler room You go into this office, everyone's smoking and calling freight brokers and or truck drivers
Yeah.
and getting them to move freight.
The thing that always blew me away more than anything was this lady. She didn't discriminate. She kind of talked to everybody that way. And she would talk to her customers. I heard her tell customers, well, you stupid son of a bitch, if you think it's so goddamn easy, why don't you do it yourself? And on and on and on and on. And then still the next day, they still, send her 10 loads. I mean, she talked to people that way all the time and got away with it, where I never, ever, would do that to a customer. You'd never hear from them again. She got away with it forever.
So
And,
did that give you confidence when you went to start your own business? You're like,
oh,
if they're successful, I this is gonna be easy.
yeah, absolutely. If these guys can do it, anybody can do it. And I was kind of right. I mean, the business had a lot of unprofessional people of that same caliber in it because they're always talking to truckers and transportation guys and people like that. It just, this just kind of the nature of the business. It was kind of a rough business. And I thought if I could bring, a little bit of my corporate America diplomacy to it that I'd learned, after a while, our headquarters to the company I came to work for in Idaho sold to a company that was based over in the self-importance, uh, the city of self-importance over in Seattle. We reported to people over there, and everything had to be, just so. And so I learned a lot about how to deal with people and be a little bit more professional, and that paid off for me.
Okay, because I know there's probably some other people out there, and you mentioned like your spouse, maybe being a little bit more comfortable and not really wanting to rock the boat, but you're making the leap. Was your spouse on board with that leap at the time?
She was, because I was going to work for a company. My pay was going to be very similar. Where the part where she maybe wasn't completely on board was when it got to where I was leaving that brokerage and opening my own, moving to the basement of the bank where I'm the only guy, just a guy with a phone down there in the basement. That's when she really got nervous. But I eased that pain a little bit by getting that buyout check from the company I work for,
Got it.
which would cover me for at least about 6 or 8 months. But I took a little vacation. I opened the business, and yeah, it takes a little while. You get a little bit nervous. You got to transfer all, get your customers to come on board with a new company, on and on. And you're sitting there. And when I finally got all that done, I'm going to say it took me 3 or 4 months really to work through that. But when I rolled over into a new year, which was 1999, the end of February, I had already had in my checking account more money than I made at the entire year at my job. So 2 months, 2 months, I'd covered my whole year. And then I thought, okay, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I can make this happen. I was making 40 a year, and within 3 or 4 months, I was making 40 a month,
Wow.
which which blew me away. And I thought that how do I got to a certain point where I was getting commission checks of about 40 and 50,000 a month. But man, I was just strapped to that desk. It was even hard to hire somebody, and just trying to expand. You had some real growing pains because you can't hardly get up and go to the bathroom. You're that busy. I had a kid come to work for me. He was about a ninth grader at the time, and he came in, started helping me with phones. Real good tech guy. We trained him to be a bookkeeper. I mean, he just left with the new company that bought me out. He's been
Sam?
here since the beginning, and most of my people have been. So, as I hired people, I was very successful at finding people that, my mentality always was, I'm not going back. I would tell people that when I would interview them. Here's what I used to make. Here's what I make, and I'm not going back.
What do you
If I'm
what do you mean?
making,
Let me pick at that for a second. Like, here's what I make. Here's what I used to make. I'm not going back. Like, give me an example.
Well, yeah, I'm not going back to corporate America where I gotta just go to 3 meetings a day to keep that don't mean anything just to keep my job, and I'm making 40 a year, and that's all I can make, whatever that number was. There was no bonus program. There was no. The only way to make more is to keep moving up that little corporate food chain, and
So were
that's
you
not easy.
dangling like a bonus option for the people you're hiring? Is that what you mean? Or
Well, what I would tell them is, here's what I used to make at my job, and here's what I make now. You come to work for me, I'm going to put you on a commission program, uh, probably much like what you do. You get to this point, and you get a stake in what you make. You got an opportunity to make as much money as you can.
so you're literally just casting the vision, like this is what I've achieved,
Yeah,
and you can do the same thing here.
easily, and I'm going to help you do it.
Okay.
And I'm even going to push you some of my overflow so that you can do it. And the stuff that's my overflow, you get this much on, and the stuff that you bring to the table, you get this much on. You're going to make a lot more money than you were making before. And I don't care if you make, I couldn't care less how much money you make, because every dime you make, I'm making one too.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
you're
it
you're
was
you're you're telling them, hey, I'm incentivized for you to make a bunch of money.
exactly.
So
Yep.
so
And that
just
worked.
I got a question. I've never asked you this before, and I can guess the answer, but I'm not going to. I want you to just say it. Did you ever get to a point, because you went from making 40 grand a year to making 40 grand a month? I mean, you're literally making $500,000 a year almost overnight. Did you ever get to the point where you're like, I don't need any more money, or like,
No, I was scared to death. And I've talked to people that I brought into the business. If like, let's say you come to work for me, and we go on for quite a while. Hey, go start your own office. I'll help you get going. After I've talked to these people down the road, and every time you go a day or two with the phone not ringing, you're just like, oh, I'm going broke. I'm done. I should have saved more money. This whole thing, this whole gravy train's rolling to an end. You do that for a couple days, and then all of a sudden the phone starts ringing, and people are sending you freight, and you're right back. But if you ever have a slow day, I never ever got past that nervousness. I don't know if it was like a video or a book that I read, but I read a book one time that the guy kept pushing that you need to have 5 income streams. One income stream's not enough. You have to have a backup. You have to really diversify. So it really stuck with me. So I started thinking I need to be taking this, and by then I have enough people around that I'm probably averaging. I probably got to a point where my commission check's like 100 a month, about 100,000 a month, and I was the largest office they had for 13 of my 25 years. And now a lot of these offices, I'm going to get to this later, but a lot of them do 100,000 a week in commission. Yeah, it's unbelievable. We keep going along. Now I got plenty of cash, kind of, to invest. Everybody's pretty secure that's working for me. I turned my book of business over to another person. They're doing that, and I decided to go start a cold storage company. So I rented a building in Boise, Idaho, that used to be the old Associated Foods warehouse, and I started Valley Cold Storage.
so just super fast, like, why cold storage? What you probably could have done tons of businesses. Something caused you to do that one. What was it?
So we pick up and deliver frozen food all the time. Our customers are always complaining that there's nowhere to keep their products, and they hate the cold storage they have, and they're all full. And we were shipping products for our customers to cold storages in Portland or Seattle or Salt Lake. And I thought, there's a need for more cold storage space right here in Boise, Idaho. So I found this, 35,000 square foot freezer sitting empty. As I'm trying to put the deal together, it sells to an investment group. The investment group says I'm not substantial enough to rent it. They're looking for somebody a little more solid. So I said, well, wait a minute. How's this sound? I go to I already go to a customer who's going to be my cold storage customer, my biggest one. I said, would you lease it to them? And he said, yeah, if they can check all the boxes. We don't care who we rent it to. So I go to them and said, hey, how about you guys rent this building? You use this half, and I'll pay you this much to use this half. And yeah, it worked great. It was you remember the old frozen bread Rhodes. Well, it's not. It's still out there. It's still out there. They rent the freezer. I take half and start a cold storage in there. Now, of course, I didn't get their business because now they got their own freezer, but I did get enough to fill up my half and was making really good money. When they decided they were going to go to, they moved their whole operation from the Treasure Valley to Columbia, Wisconsin. When they did that, they pulled out of the freezer, but they still had 2 years left on the lease. They let me sublease it. I just
Okay.
paid them.
So just super fast, because I think there's a lot of wisdom that was just dropped there in that 60-second story. So first of all, you have insider knowledge that a few people have, but very few people have, right? Like, because you're moving the freight and these guys need something. Secondly, you decide to take action on it, right? 'Cause plenty of
Yeah.
people have insider knowledge, but they don't do anything with it, Mike. So you decide, like, I'm going to do something with it. And then the third thing that I'm hearing is you got creative, because, you want it. It'd be nice if you would have got the Rolls client. That would have been real nice, but you had no way of getting the building without them. So I just, like, I'm thinking, if I'm listening to this and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do you do right now? And what are the opportunities around you right now? And are you getting creative? So just, those are some things that are going through my head. Anything you want to say about that before you go into, Rhodes letting you sublease it?
Well, I think that the way that I look at where opportunity is, I have this discussion all the time with people. I got a guy, I've been trying to get my hot tub fixed for 6 months. The guy doesn't show up. The guy doesn't call you back. The guy doesn't text you back. He shows up with the wrong pieces. The same way, if you need a well drilled, yeah, we can get there. It's going to be 8 months. When you see businesses that have a huge lead time, or everybody that you deal with in that business is incompetent, and you feel that you're not, every one of those is an opportunity. So, it's no different in your business. If you think that every single realtor you talk to is just a guy with a dog and a pickup, then you might say to yourself, I could bring a lot more professionalism to this game. I need to maybe do this. So you can spot opportunities also by just listening to people. I've been looking for somebody to do this for months. I can't find anybody. You'd think with the internet there'd be all kinds of, those are opportunities,
Yeah.
especially if you don't have much going.
That's an amazing, I'm glad I paused you there, because that's just an amazing observation. It's like you just said, like, if you're feeling pain or you're complaining about something, like, it's possible you're not the only one, and maybe there's an opportunity there. And I love how you mentioned the lead time. So, okay. So now Rhodes says, hey, you can sublease this thing. Now what happens?
Okay. So they sublease it to me. They moved to Wisconsin. 2 years, the lease is up. I'm going to put the lease over to me. I mean, I've been paying the rent anyway. The investment group is a new one now. They do go through all my financials and say, we're looking for somebody a little more substantial. The same thing as it was, 6 years ago. And it's like, but look, I can pay the rent I got enough cash to pay the rent for 2 or 3 years if I have zero business. We just, they're looking these big commercial leases where the lease can be 60, 70 grand a month. They're looking for the big player. I guess I don't blame them. But anyway, Rhodes says, we hate to, man, you've got a good little business going. I just can't believe they won't do it, but we're not going to co-sign or continue to lease. But we have a freezer that we moved out of that we still have like 6 years left on the lease over in Caldwell. So I open that freezer up and sublease it from Rhodes. It's not big enough, so I start buying reefer trailers and using mobile storage as well as their freezer, but I continue the business going. I do that for 18 months, and all the time I pester these these people that own the building.
Now,
I keep
is their building just empty or what?
Yeah, it's just sitting there empty.
Awesome.
Finally, we're going on 18 months of it being empty, and I tell the guy by the name of Freddie, Southern California guy, got more money than probably even I could spend, and I said, Freddie, oh, I'm telling you, if you fly to town and you meet me, just meet me. Let me talk to you. Let me show you what I'm doing. Let me show you what I'm doing now. How I've kept this thing alive. My clients, if you want to meet them, whatever you want to do, just come and meet me and have a hour conversation. If you don't like me, I'll pay for your plane ticket and your associate, whatever. But I just got to talk to you. This building is sitting empty. I can utilize it. I can rent it for whatever you know. So he goes, okay, you got to meet him. He said he calls me back the next day and said, we're going to meet you at the Ram on Broadway. We're going to fly in. We're going to go have lunch. And you got 30 minutes to impress me. So basically they fly in and I meet him at the Ram. We don't ever leave there. We just have conversation. And I start the conversation by saying, Freddie, this building, right here's the revenue. I brought my books. Right here's what I generated for revenue in that building for all these years before you bought it. Now it's been sitting empty for 18 months. I'm willing to guarantee you $20,000 a month, which I can pay you for 5 years or so up front if you want. I can pay you, but I'm also willing to give you half of everything over that. So the least that can happen to you is going to be you're going to be $250,000 richer next year than you are right now, because you're going to get 20 grand a month, but you're going to get half of my revenue that I generate over that. So if I bill 80 grand a month, your rent's roughly going to be 50, because every quarter I'm going to send you a check. And he thinks about that for a minute, and he's kind of one of these weird, almost like a Texas guy. And he's like, you son of a bitch. He said, that's kind of the way he talked. He said, he just like shook my hand and said, you got yourself a deal. So he said, I'll send you some paperwork. He's got his like right-hand man with him, and he says, hey, this guy's going to start a cold storage there. Give him what he needs. Get him the paperwork that he needs. He just explained the deal, write it up that way. And I also become good friends with that guy over time. So these guys, I went to a refrigeration company, opened the freezer, got out of the old Rhodes deal. They didn't have a problem with it. They had other people wanting in that building, and started the cold storage, and went to another customer and said, hey, I'll make you guys a deal that you can't refuse. I'm on the hook for 20 grand a month, no matter what, even if I don't get any business at all. But I go to this customer that I've been taking care of their stuff, and I say, hey, for 30 grand a month, I will let you have just these aisles right here to work like it's your freezer. You come, you go, you have a key to the building, you do whatever the hell you want. I don't bill you for storage, I don't anything. You just give me a flat 30 grand a month, it's yours. They're like, deal. We're paying a miracle. We're paying other storage places 50 grand a month. Good for, yeah. I send them over a contract. They sign it. We roll with it.
Is this like basically day one of you taking over the new contract?
Yeah, we're not quite day one yet, because I don't have the paperwork back from the guy in
So it's
Portland
before. So you get the deal
I get the deal
verbalized,
done.
and then you get your someone to pay the rent.
Yeah. I haven't signed the deal yet, and then I go to. Can I say company names and this kind of a thing? I won't. But
Yeah,
anyway.
you can say whatever you want. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so it's B&D Foods. They produce frozen food here in town, and they were spending a lot of money on storage and had outgrown their freezer. And this was a win-win-win, like that's great news because it's like 2 miles from their warehouse. So I actually get them to sign a deal before I've even signed my deal. But I know it's coming. I know the guy's going to send me the deal. So I'm already even because that'll pay for a maintenance guy, it'll pay for my power bill, and it pays the rent. Now anything I generate, all I got to do is half of it's mine. I split it with these other guys. So immediately, B&D Foods has another company they're going to do a lot of stuff with that's looking for a place to store. They bring them in. I bring in other. I mean, I've got the thing almost immediately billing 80 grand a month. So I'm giving those guys their 20, and at the end of the quarter, I've got like 180. I owe them another 90. I'm mailing these guys $100,000 check every quarter.
Were
Keeping
they just
100,000.
blown away when they get those checks?
Oh, they after that, I'll tell you a story. Fast forward and on that deal, we become great friends, even though we only get together a couple times a year. The first thing that this Freddie guy would say. I mean, this guy's got like racehorses and rodeo horses and buildings. He owns campgrounds all up and down the coast from Canada to Mexico. He's just cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. He would always come and say, the first thing he'd always say is, shake my hand and go, "We love being partners with Mike Smith. You son of a bitch, sit down. Get us a beer." You know what I mean? They always were like, "We love being partners with you, buddy."
Yeah,
And
it's like as I'm hearing this story. First of all, it's super fascinating, and just to give our listeners a little heads up, probably going to go a little longer than I typically do because there's more I want to get to. If you got time, I don't know how you're doing
yeah,
on
well,
time.
we'll go. We can go ahead.
Okay,
Time's gone pretty fast here.
it is, it's gone by quick, but here's what I'm hearing. Like you are creative, and you're not taking no for an answer. And these are some takeaways that I think we need to be aware of is like they told you no for 18 months and you just kept being like, how about now? How about now? How about now? And I think you also brought a deal together that truly was a win for you and for them. I mean, who's going to say no to that? And you structured it in a way that just made them feel like an idiot if they didn't accept it, right? Like that's the crazy thing is you brought this deal together and you're like, well, this is an IQ test, are you going to pass? And they're like, I better take it. So just fascinating, and I guess fast forwarding to the end, which is where you're going. You sold this business, right?
I did sell the business, but I when these folks they sold the building while I was still there, and you can always continue and do another episode down the line. We can take you the rest of the way. I know once I get to talking, I have a hard time keeping track of time.
Oh yeah, no worries. If
It's,
you want another episode with Mr. Smith, comment below, or if you're listening to a podcast, go ahead and
but
let me know.
I'll tell you real quick. These guys, we go on for about 10 years like this, except business keeps growing. I mean, sometimes I'm sending these guys a check for 150,000 for the quarter, plus their 20,000 a month that they collect. And they come to me and they say, "Hey, we got a deal for you. You've never not done something that you said you would do. You are one of the best business relationships that we have ever had. But we're going to sell this place. So what we're going to do is we're going to have you sign this triple net lease, 6-year lease, so that we can sell the business based on the cap rate that the lease generates." But he said, "I'm going to lower your rent by $1 million over that 6 years because of your commission deal. The building's only worth this per square foot, but because of the deal you made going in, we're getting way more than that." But do you see where I'm going with it?
Oh
He
yeah, yeah.
says, if we sell it for what we're asking, I'm going to give you a $300,000 bonus, and I'm going to lower your rent for the next 6 years by $1 million. And I said, done. I signed the lease. Sure enough,
What
like
did the lease go to per month at that point then?
Oh, it went down to like half of what I've been paying.
What was the number? Like 50, 60, 70
Like
grand,
50
80 grand?
grand a month instead of 100.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So
So
$50,000 a month instead of
yeah,
100.
yeah,
You're
yeah. So it
like,
went way down. It was a
and they
million
give you
dollars.
300 grand and they
It was
buy
a
you a
million
truck
dollars
too, didn't they?
over 6 years. So like within a month, they get a buyer. The guy wants to close by the end of the year. So the people call and tell me, hey, here's what's happening. These guys want to buy it, on and on and on. But I said, well, what about your commission and the deal we have? And he says, you know what? We want you to keep that. Buy yourself a new pickup for Christmas or something. And I did. I still have the pickup.
Yeah, I thought they bought you a pickup, so you just
They
had the
did.
extra money.
They sent me the money and told me to buy a pickup.
Oh, that's
But
nice.
anyway, and then hey, I look at my checking account, my personal account one day, and it's got $300,000 in it that wasn't there the day before, and a nice Christmas card.
Well,
It's
well,
just
I think in the interest of time, and we probably will have to come back. We'll probably do a round two because I want to talk about your exits because I'm a business owner. I've got a handful of businesses. I know some of the people listening are business owners as well, and like, what do exits look like? You've exited, I believe, at least 3 businesses in the
yeah,
last
3 companies.
in
Yeah.
the last year or two. So we don't have to go in there today, just because you're right. I mean, we should keep the episode time similar to what our other ones are. We can go for a round two. Where do you want to? What would make sense to get us out of here today?
Well, getting us out of here is like, hey, we spent an hour letting folks know how we got in, and now we can do another episode of maybe a few little other things we added while we were in, and then how did we get out?
Well, let me just ask you some rapid fire questions and right now. So, um, what principles or filters guide your decisions, Mike?
You know, one thing that guides my decisions is, like you said, you won't take no for an answer. You don't. There's an old saying. You've seen cows running around free before on the road, right? But if the cow doesn't bump the gate every single day, she's never going to get out. She has to bump the gate on the day that the farmer forgets to lock it. You got to bump it every day. You can't just, somebody tells you no. Yeah, the answer might be no today, but I tell you, if you got a building, a 30,000 square foot building sitting empty, the answer ain't going to be no forever if that thing's sitting there getting dusty. You, when you're looking at it from that kind of perspective, you can put yourself into opportunities because you know the other people are hurting. But I have a hard time not taking off on a tangent, huh?
Hey, no, that's great. So
Yeah.
so
Persistence.
go ahead.
Persistence. You got to be
Persistence.
persistent.
You mentioned your favorite book of yours is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes.
Is there any advice, like your favorite advice that you've received over the years?
Most of it comes from that book, but one piece of advice that I got that I never ever will forget is you got to be doing what you're going to be doing by the time you're 40.
What do you mean by
Yeah.
that?
Well, the way this guy explained it is you start to run out of time now. 50 is probably the new 40. So I would probably change that. If you get into a good deal at 50, you're still going to have to work 15 years, right?
Yeah, what do you? Let me ask you what you mean by that, because I know what it meant to you, but you've told me it was kind of lighting a fire under you. You're like, I don't want to be
Yeah,
doing.
you
Yeah, so tell us
got
about
to
that.
get moving. I don't. I think the gist of that is you don't want to be just have ideas still rolling around in your head when you're 60, and now it's getting too late to maybe fire them up to get going.
Got it. Got it. So if you're not happy where you're at and you're under 50,
You got to take action
go
before
do
you're
something.
60. Yeah, yeah.
Do something about it. All right. Is there a habit that you would say is underrated in terms of people's success, like something you see people do habitually who are successful?
Yeah, I made this mistake in my first business life. You start spending money too quick, and you start taking time off because you're making plenty of money, and your work ethic maybe isn't what it should be because of your success.
So that's a bad habit. Is you maybe you
Yeah.
start getting a little taste of success and then you stop
Yeah.
doing what got you successful.
Yep. Get a little complacent.
Okay, cool. And then if someone's just starting out, is there any advice you'd give them?
Yeah, I don't think it's in some cases I don't think it's as easy as it was when I started off, but then I see people do it all the time. They start a little company and pretty soon they're printing money. So the advice that I have to them is don't be afraid to try it, because if you don't, you can if it don't work, you can try something else, and it isn't like you can't go get a job. If you're crawling out of the barrel, the furthest you can fall is the bottom, and that's probably where you started. So,
All right. Well, this has been amazing. I truly mean this to you, Mike. Like, thank you for your time and for everything, not just this podcast, but like for me, you've been a mentor. I mean that. I only have a handful of mentors my whole life, and you're one of them. And I tell people all the time. So I appreciate you as a friend, a mentor, business partner, and yeah, I think we are going to go around too. We're going to talk about exits the next time you and I talk. So
okay.
thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I guess at the end of the day, I like to hear myself talk.
Well, I like to hear you talk too, believe it or not. So thanks again, Mike.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Not a Financial Advisor podcast. This episode helped you think differently. Share it with someone you think would benefit. Remember, your potential grows when you do. We'll see you at the next one.